In this video, we'll be talking about the importance or the advantage and disadvantages of renting an apartment in diaspora. So we have so many discrepancies where people tend to emphasize more on renting an apartment rather than owning an apartment because it is not your mother's land. Now in this video, we'll be going straight. When it comes to renting an apartment, there are certain advantages that comes along with it, and also disadvantages that also comes along with it. Now, the first advantage that comes with renting an apartment, it provides flexibility for you. If you are a nomad, traveling for work and all other stuff, it is advisable you rent an apartment because you are not in a fixed position. So it creates flexibility whereby you travel for work and then at the end of your work you come back or you go back to your own country. Now that is one of the advantages of renting an apartment. It also gives fewer immediate financial responsibilities. When you rent an apartment, the sole responsibility of the apartment lies on the landlord or on your landlord, and a little percentage of the responsibility also falls on you. It falls on you. So there are certain things that goes wrong in the house whereby you have to call your landlord. He has to come and fix it up. So it reduces your financial responsibilities when it comes to fixing up the house, when it comes to certain issues that got to do with the house. So it also relieves you from property maintenance. That is part of what I was talking about, financial responsibilities. Now there are series of maintenance that goes also with owning an apartment, and there are also series of maintenance that also goes with renting an apartment. So let's take for instance you rent an apartment and you have problem with, let's say, your heating system, your cooling system. You have to call your landlord. He has to come and fix it up. Whatever issues that goes on in the house, because it does not belong to you, you have to put a call to your landlord and then reach out to him. He comes, fix it up, and then it goes. But there are certain cases whereby the sole responsibility of maintenance lies in the hands of the tenant. Depends on what you sign on the lease, or depends on the agreement the landlord decides to go into with you before signing the leasing agreement. So it is also an excellent choice for those with more fluid lifestyle, or those frequently who has the mindset of relocating. So many a times we see people, they come when they travel out with the intention of not staying long, and of which they are true to that cause of not staying long. So therefore they tend to rent an apartment. Because why? They are not planning to stay longer than expected. Take for instance those with visiting visas, tourist visas, business visas and all sorts. They stick to renting an apartment because why? They know they can relocate at any point in time. So that is the advantage of renting an apartment. And also there is no closing costs. There is no closing cost when it comes to renting an apartment. There is no closing cost. You don't have to spend more. You don't have to spend more on closing costs and all that tax, or it lies solely on the landlord. And another thing that comes with renting an apartment, another advantage that comes with renting an apartment, it comes with duration ranges from 3 to 5 years or thereabout, depending on the policy of the country in which you choose to reside in. So when renting an apartment, you should also know that the responsibilities falls in the hands of the landlord. The advantage that comes with renting an apartment, you just have to make a down payment, 2-3 months down payment, and then the house is yours. No extra charges, nothing, and then they give you the house based on your preference and your choice. So it is easy to rent an apartment. It is easy to rent an apartment. So the advantages of renting an apartment, it reduces your financial burden when it comes to maintenance, when it comes to flexibility, when it comes to the kind of lifestyle you want to live, when it comes to maintenance and all sorts. So these are the advantages of renting an apartment. Now we move to the disadvantage of renting an apartment. Now one of the disadvantages of renting an apartment is this. It is what you see, you get. It is what you see, you get. Renting an apartment in diaspora comes in different forms and in different ways. And also depends on the landlord that is giving you that apartment. Your landlord can put on the lease no modification, which means you are not allowed to modify your apartment to your own taste. That is why I said it is what you see, you get. You are not allowed to modify it to your own taste. It is how you met it, that is how it ought to be. So there are some apartments that are well furnished, that all you just need is just your belongings. You just get into the apartment. Whatever goes wrong lies on the hands of the landlord. Now there are also apartments whereby it is empty. Everything you have to put in, you have to spend your own money to furnish that apartment. And also the landlord will also give you some preference on how to go about it, what to do and what not to do. Now I could remember some years back when I rented my first apartment, and before signing the leasing agreement, which was supposed to be for 4 years, my landlord told me, on no occasion should you make a hole on the wall. On no occasion should you make a hole on the wall. And knowing the fact that when you get a TV, most of the TVs we get nowadays, you have to peg it to the wall. And you can't even hang a frame on the wall. You can't put anything on the wall. That was a clear instruction that was given. So you just have to leave. Your TV has to be on the ground, or you get your TV stand and all those stuff. Nothing should be on the wall. And I lived that way for 3 years. I had no curtains. I couldn't put my TV on the wall. I couldn't even make the house look to my own tastes. Because why? The landlord's preference. So the disadvantage that comes with this, you will not be happy living where you are living, because why? There is a condition attached to where you are living in. It is always so. So it took a friend to muster up the courage to put a hole on the wall after my 3rd year in that apartment. And that was where I even placed a curtain to my own taste. Not regarding the consequences that might come along with it when my landlord finds out. So it is always a burden when the landlord gives a preference. Another disadvantage that comes with it, you end up paying more than the house is worth. Now, due to the housing crisis we face in this present time we find ourselves, you will discover that the prices of renting an apartment goes up. It's on the increase. A house that is supposed to be for €300, $300, just spike and you end up getting it for 600. Because why? People are more desperate now to get an apartment, to rent an apartment. You can't walk on the streets without meeting 3 to 5 people asking you, oh, I'm just looking for an apartment to rent. Do you have any idea? Sometimes you get an apartment to rent, but you won't be able to get it. So you have to pay more. And it might interest you to know that now in this present time, you might be lucky. You might be lucky to get an apartment that you see your landlord will request you, or the agency will ask you to pay for 2 months deposit and 1 month rent, and then you just sign the leasing agreement and then you get into the house. Now they request for 1 year deposit. Not just only 1 year deposit, with bank guarantee. With bank guarantee. So which means your bank will have to stand as a guarantor for you on that 1 year payment, or that 1 year deposit rather. So it is very difficult for you now to even get an apartment whereby you pay 2 months deposit, you pay 3 months deposit and all that just to get in. So which is why, as at now, renting an apartment is even much more expensive than buying a home or owning a home. Because why? You have to pay that down payment. And it might interest you to know that even the down payment in question, your deposit in question, if you channel that same effort into owning your own home, you see that now owning a home and getting a home is more or less par. You have to make a down payment of 1 year. You have to get your bank to stand as a guarantor for you, and it is not free. It is not free. Your bank standing as a guarantor for you, it is not free. It comes with a yearly cost. It ranges, depends on the bank. So for them standing as a guarantor for you on your own deposit, you have to still pay them for it. You have to pay them for it. So now it costs more to rent an apartment than owning an apartment. It costs more. So to as many out there that are feeling that it is not an option to own an apartment, and it will also interest you to know that even to rent an apartment, houses are not being given to foreigners anymore. It is very, very difficult to get an apartment as a foreigner. Because why? They are scared. Because why? They are scared. When it comes to renting an apartment, I make series of calls, trying to help our brothers around, search for apartments, get an apartment, and all that, due in line with the financial situation and their the amount they are willing to spend to get in an apartment. Series of times I make these calls, and then the first question they will ask you, where are you from? Where are you from? That is another disadvantage that comes with renting an apartment as of now. Where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? When they discover you are from certain divide, they just tell you there is no apartment anymore. There is no apartment anymore. So there are so many disadvantages that comes with renting an apartment. Even before you get the apartment, even before you rent the apartment, there are a series of challenges that comes with it. Even after renting the apartment, there are also challenges that comes along with it. Another challenge that will interest you to know, your landlord can decide at any time to kick you out after your leasing contract has expired. Yeah. After your leasing contract has expired, your landlord can decide to kick you out. What prompted me to counter series of people that says, oh, renting an apartment is the best, renting an apartment is the best as a foreigner. I've seen cases of friends who have lived in a certain apartment, paying their rent diligently, 15 years, 16 years, and at the end of the day, the landlord comes, I want to sell this apartment. If you are not buying, leave. And then they start running helter-skelter looking for where to get an apartment, because while they are working on a deadline. It has happened to so many people. A young friend of mine also called me a certain time back and said, what do I do? Because the owner of my house wants to sell the house and wants me to buy the house. And I told her I don't have the money to buy the house, and he gave me an ultimatum to leave. Where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? And knowing fully well the housing crisis, getting an apartment is difficult. Where do I go from here? So if you live in any country, any part of the world, always take that in mind. The house you are in does not belong to you, and anything can happen. And your landlord can wake up on the wrong side of the bed and just decide to tell you, you have to leave once your contract expires. And the leasing contract lasts for 3 to 5 years, depends on the landlord and the preference. And it is also in the discretion of the landlord to renew that contract. So if the landlord decides not to renew that contract for you, it's like heading for a doomsday. because you will be left with no other alternative than to leave and to look for somewhere else to stay. So the disadvantage is more than the advantage. Why? Because the house is not yours to control. The benefit of living in that house is not yours to control. So many at times we feel, yes, we need to stay for a while and then go back to our home country. No one is disputing that fact. And this friend of mine that got kicked out of the house because the landlord wants to sell it after 15 years, she never anticipated that she would stay in the country for even up to that time. She was also on the mindset that, oh, I just 5, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, I'm done, I'll go back to my own country, invest and all that. But at the end of the day, 15 years knocked her down. 15 years knocked her down. And sometimes we need to learn from the experience of other people to build our own self. You learn from others to build your own self. You don't learn from others to kill your own self. So many people have been kicked out of their own homes. So many landlords have locked their houses. Why? Because they are scared of giving it out, that the house or the tenant will not pay after a certain period of time. And another disadvantage of renting an apartment is that these landlords or these agencies, they know themselves. They know themselves. They know themselves. There's what we call the house owning authorities, whereby once in a while they call for meetings for homeowners where they discuss and all that. And then if this landlord starts making complaint, oh, this tenant in my house paid maybe 6 months rent, after that stopped paying and has refused to leave the house, the others get scared and this instead of me to give my house out, I prefer locking it down. That is what we are seeing today. There are houses, but it's on lockdown. They don't want to give it out. They prefer to sell it than renting it out. Before, you see more houses for rent than for sale, but now you see more houses for sale than for rent. Because why? They prefer to leave that house the way it is. Even if it takes them 15 years to sell it, they will leave it that way. So before you put up a mindset of, oh, I just came here to stay a few years, I'm going back to my country, or what if before the expiration of your own said time, your landlord decide to kick you out of the house? What then do you now do? That's a food for thought. So to get more on housing tips, mortgage, click like and share. And there will also be a link below whereby you can get more tips on housing. Until we meet again.